Hey everybody, welcome back to A Link Between Oracles, our show. Blind Wolf here with Jack, as always. We're going to be talking today about the fourth dungeon, and hopefully the fifth if we have time for it. If not, we'll do it on the next episode. But the fourth and fifth dungeons in A Link Between, in Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. Jack, how's it going?
It's going good. My journey between the third and the fourth dungeon was a lot. I mean a lot. I got 7 hours of playtime in before I even got to the entrance of the dungeon.
That is a lot.
Yes, and it was partially because I immediately went, cool, trade quest time. And I embarked on one of the... It's not a confusing trade quest. It's just a lot of trade quests. So after running into Maple, the witch, on her broom while carrying a Lon egg, she needs an egg for some reason, and they're very popular with girls. Ooh. And she says, I'm a boy, I don't need those.
She says she's a boy?
No, she says that I'm a boy and I don't need the Lon egg. Gotcha. So she gives me a ghastly doll instead. And I take the ghastly doll to a woman in Spool Swamp, and she goes, I need something that really gives me the chills, not like winter. And so you show her the ghastly doll and she gets scared, so she gives you an iron pot. And then
what a trade.
That's kind of where the trading quest ended for then. But I went onward exploring, and in my exploration, through the use of my new handy dandy flute summoning friend Ricky, or flute summoned friend Ricky.
Sure.
I made my way towards the Sunken City, and on my way to the Sunken City, I noticed something out of the ordinary. There were large cannons with faces on them, all staring out in this square perimeter of this building. Turns out, King Moblin makes a return from Link's Awakening, and it's a very similar fight where you have to throw his bombs back at him, but it's really cool. You make your way... you have to avoid him at first. You can't get up to the place because it's the only entrance is blocked by deep water. So you continue on to the Sunken City, and you find a bunch of kids bullying a rather sad dinosaur.
Oh no.
He's crying, and they're poking him with sticks, saying that they're the safety patrol and they're going to save the town. And you talk to them, and they go, do you have bombs? And you go, yeah, here, 6-year-old kids, here's some bombs.
Oh, wow.
And they run off with the bombs. And Dimitri, his name is Dimitri, the dinosaur, and he thanks you for helping him out. He looks basically like a Dodongo, but a little more colorful and a little more nice. And he lets you ride on his back. And now Dimitri can do two things. He can swim in deep water and up waterfalls, and he can also bite enemies with a chomp that sucks.
It does.
Here's the thing. Moosh's butt squash attack is great for clearing areas, but kind of sucks. Dimitri's chomp sucks. It is so slow and so hard to aim at anything in this game that it's kind of like, why does this exist? That being said, you hop on Dimitri and you ride up some waterfalls and you come to an old man's house, and he is the old diver, and he finally gives you the Zora's flippers, and thank the Lord that you finally don't have to be shut off from a lot of things. So eventually, as soon as I got them, I went straight back to the King Moblin area, and I immediately went into King Moblin's fortress. And eventually got into this fight where he was throwing bombs down at me, and I had to throw them back up when they'd explode just right on him. And it was really cool that they didn't just have that be the only mechanic. I ended up having to get a bomb blow up behind him and hit him. Wow. So that he would, when he was holding a bomb, so that he would drop the bomb behind himself and blow up all the bombs behind him, wow, which would blow up the fortress. And so managed that. And to be honest, I don't think I got anything from doing that.
Maybe not yet.
It didn't feel like I got anything for that. And I'm trying to think if I oh no, you know what I got for it? I got a fucking piece of heart.
Nice.
That is what I got. I got a piece of heart.
That's always good, though.
Yeah, it's always good. And I think by now through exploration, I had a full extra heart container, and I was about 6 or 7. But then I moved on to get, I found a portal to Subrosia, and I moved on to get the Season of Summer. And I arrive in Subrosia, I jump over the little platform, I'm on this little place that's separated by lava, so I jump over the lava, and these 2 little shits run into me. They're both wearing, one's wearing a blue cloak, and the other one's wearing a red cloak. And they knock my Rock's Feather off, and they steal it, and they run off. And you have to follow them. Now, they do this thing that is one of my least favorite things to do in any game. And it's having to hide from characters that are moving on a set path. And the reason I don't like this is because usually you watch them for 3 screens and you avoid them and whatever, and it's fine. And then on the 4th or 5th one, like the second to last one, they'll leave for a couple seconds and then wait for you to come out of your hiding spot, and it'll have the character come back in to double check no one's following them, and it's just like the most asinine thing, and it just wastes time. So you have to follow these little shits who have stolen your Rock's Feather through the stupid forest where you have to play basically hide and go seek without them knowing, and then you find out where they bury your feather and you get it back. It's really just a time waster, and the thing is, you can revisit their hut, and to get, I think, 100 ore or 50 ore, you can follow them again on a new pattern, and they will bury it in the same place, but you have to wait till they're done. And then you get, like, free money. So it's a great way to, like, for sure get a lot of money fast in Subrosia for later on. But it's really annoying when you just don't want to be doing that and just getting the Season of Summer. But you move on, you grab Season of Summer. It's pretty straightforward. It wasn't really that hard to grab. I want to say you needed the feather, and that's kind of what they kind of force you to do that. And then I went back and explored this mountain. And this mountain was Mount Kuko, or Mount Kuko, or Mount the Chicken Mountain.
Yeah, I say Kuko. I don't know if that's right. It's probably not, but...
And you have to use summer to make some flowers grow that you can break away, and you see Moosh sitting there on the ground, and he's so hungry. So you make your way through this little tunnel, and you find a banana tree at the top. You take the bananas down to Moosh, and he lets you ride on his back across big, long gaps, and so you can take him anywhere. And I took him as far as I could. I tried to take him all the way back to this one area that I knew had a bunch of holes, and I couldn't get him past a certain point because of water. So I eventually explored more of the mountain with him, found a key, and this is where I found I went to backtrack. In Subrosia, I continued my trade quest, where I took the iron pot and got some really, really great gumbo stew.
Nice.
It was like super hot lava stew. And you take the lava stew to the mountain, and on Mount Kuko, you can find like the Goron village in the Goron cave, and you find Bygorn. And Bygorn has a cold, so you give him
the lava soup,
and he is miraculously cured. So then I took the what I got from that was a Goron vase, and someone in the Sunken City had already told me he just needed one more vase to complete his collection, but that stubborn Bygorn wouldn't give it to him. So you take the vase to that guy, the guy gives you a fish, you take the fish back all the way to somebody who is sitting in front of the starting town who's trying to get his cat down off of a tree, and you give him the fish, the cat comes down, and so he gives you his megaphone, and you take the megaphone back to Mount Kuko, and you wake up some guy who's sleeping in front of a toadstool. Pick up the toadstool, go back to the Sunken City, where Maple, the witch, or Syrup, the witch, Maple is her apprentice, Syrup the witch is sitting there saying, like, I sent Maple out for mushrooms an hour ago, and you give it to her, and then from that point on, you can return and buy for 300 rupees a magic potion, which means if you die, all of your hearts get restored. It's one of the best items in A Link to the Past, one of the best items in Link's Awakening. Also one of the best items in Oracle of Seasons. And from there, she gives you a wooden bird, and you take the wooden bird to the guy in the starting town at the clock shop to make the best, what did they called? Cuckoo clocks? To make the best cuckoo clock. And you give him this wooden bird that's masterfully crafted, and he gives you engine grease. And you go back across to the guy playing Song of Storms in front of this windmill, and you give him the engine grease, and he wheels up his engine, and then you finally, and then he gives you a phonograph. And that's all you can do at this point, but you have technically finished the trading quest.
That's a lot. Yeah. You went through basically the entire trade quest.
Yes.
Wow.
And meanwhile on this trade quest, I found this man clad in a golden robe, and he gave me this odd quest to do. It was defeat the golden beasts, the 4 golden beasts. I remember playing this game and not knowing a thing about them. I maybe assumed it was the last 4 dungeons were going to be these golden colored beasts. I was wrong. While exploring around and changing the seasons up, I stumbled across this moblin that was a weird color that would not die in more than 2-3 hits. It took roughly like 10 or so to kill him, and I went, oh, that must be one of the golden beasts because he was yellow. So then I went exploring, and I was basically trial and erroring each section I had already been, changing up the seasons, because what I figured out is that the golden moblin showed up because I used a different season than what was the normal one, and they all seemed to be related. And I ended up finding in Spool Swamp, the last place I was in with Ricky, there was a golden Octorok that I changed, I think, the season to summer. I could do it now that I had summer, or maybe it was winter. I don't really remember. But I remember I made him show up. So I had 2 golden beasts, but I couldn't find any more no matter what I looked through. So I went back to Mount Cuckoo, got a ring box upgrade from the Gorons, and then went back to Subrogio one more time, found myself in this kind of untamed area, found a bomb flower that needed to be used to blow up the rocks that were sitting in front of the Temple of Autumn, basically, and also went on another date with Rosa. And Rosa, while we were there, we went on a date to the market. I bought her some nice stuff. I also bought myself a members card. I have no idea what that does, but I bought myself a members card. And got the Season of Autumn, and then did more exploring because I now had the Autumn season, which is one of the coolest ones, because what happens with Autumn is if there are any holes in the ground, it covers them with leaves.
Oh, nice.
So, and you can walk on them without them breaking. Nice. So it's this really nice thing of, there was that section that or that part I was talking about where I tried to pull Moosh back to the beginning. I could finally go over there and get another, it turned out to be a gaseous seed, and I was a little disappointed that it wasn't a piece of heart. And then I finally made it. And after all that, I finally made it to the Dancing Dragon dungeon. And that dungeon was pretty straightforward. There wasn't a lot in there. It was Minecart City, as I like to call those specific dungeons, where almost every room is based on minecart traversal and flip switching. And I was getting really tired of it because I didn't have a long range thing that wasn't my boomerang. So it was getting really, I kept having to go back over and over and over again until I beat the mini boss, which was this really cool mini boss. Kind of like how you talked about the little pose spirit from Ocarina of Time. It was like this magician guy, the shadowy magician, that created 3 clones of himself, and there were 2 torches in the room. And you had to light both torches to reveal the shadow under the real one to know which one to attack. And meanwhile, they're shooting fireballs at you and moving around, and it's...
That's cool.
It was a really cool dungeon. Yeah. And right after that, I got the slingshot, which is very similar to the seed shooter, but they don't reflect off stuff. So it's just...
Gotcha.
That, and who knows, it might fire faster, but it might not. But so I could start slingshotting a lot of enemies with gale seeds and fire seeds. Have you attacked somebody with gale seeds yet?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Next time you're out in the world, just throw a gale seed on an enemy. It's the most satisfying way to defeat an enemy. And then I got through the rest of the dungeon. It really was kind of,
straightforward.
Yeah, it was weak sauce. I like that word to describe level design. It was weak sauce. It was really easy to get through. It was small potatoes.
Gotcha.
That's what it was.
Tiniest potatoes.
And then I got to the boss Goma, which is a very normal Zelda boss who is always a crab-like, spider-like monster. And this time it was a crab, and it waits for you to get close and then strikes really fast. So you have to get close to it, get out of the way, and then attack it before it moves away. And then when it gets low on health, it starts power spawning babies, like 5 or 6 at a time, and they're just a hassle to fight while you're still trying to deal with Goma. But it's a fun fight. You never feel bored. But yeah.
Okay. But that's another dungeon that you mentioned that has what you were talking about before with like the whole pressure with more adding stuff, projectiles, little babies.
Near the end of the fight to keep the difficulty up.
Seems to be a reoccurring theme. You're right. So for my trade quest, it all started very early on in the graveyard, which was the first dungeon. And there you find this ghost, and he says that he needs you to move his headstone to allow him into the afterlife, essentially. So you do that, and he gives you a poke clock, which is cool. So now you have a little clock, which helps because apparently there's a mailman in the city, and he doesn't know what time it is, which is bad for mailmen in general. So you give him the poke clock, and he gives you stationery, which is awesome. He just gives you some stationery.
Always gotta have something to write some notes on.
I love stationery personally. Then there's this is where it gets weird. Okay, there's this other house in the city where there's just this hand reaching out from a hole, just a hand, and it's like waving at you, kind of, and it's like, and if you actually talk to the hand, it just says paper. I need paper, and you're like, why do you need paper?
Oh, you know why he needs paper.
So you give him the stationery, and he gives you a stink bag. Is what the item name is, which you can only surmise he just like used that paper to wipe himself and gave you his shit. Like that's what just happened.
So you want to know a secret?
What?
So that is a reference to Majora's Mask. There is part of Majora's Mask. There is that hand, and it's coming out of a toilet, and it's just saying paper, paper, and then you hear it like wipe itself basically, and then go, I'm sure you don't want this, so here, take this thing instead.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's another reference to a console 64 game.
Yeah, it seems to be a lot of those. So that happens, and the sink bag plays a part on that Tokay Island, actually, from last episode that I was talking about, where there's a Tokay who is also sick, and he has a congested nose, and he's like, I need something real strong to like smell because I can barely like smell anything. So you give him a stink bag naturally.
I mean, when I'm really congested, that's what I do. I just take a bag of shit and just
take a huge whiff of that.
Just clears the sinuses right up.
So that works on him, and you get a tasty meat, which is a lot more
delectable.
Yeah, like probably like a better thing in general. And then you go back to the town, and there's actually this there's basically the Happy Mask salesman, and he's like, I'm so hungry, and so you're like, here, have this tasty meat, and he's like, thank God, and he gives you the doggy mask because he's a Happy Mask salesman. So you get the doggy mask. So what happens after you exit the moonlit grotto is you go outside onto the beach, and guess who's there? None other but Dimitri, the Digongo, and he's all sad, and you're like, okay. But I don't know, he just seems emo, like normally. He's just like always sad.
He's what's his name from Tarzan, the elephant.
Yeah.
He's always just he's got a Eeyore disposition.
Yeah, he's the Eeyore of this game, definitely. But some Tokays are harassing him, and they're like, here, give some seeds, and you're like, okay, here, just take the seeds and leave the dinosaur alone. So Dimitri's like, thanks, and then he offers to allow you to swim on him to get back to the mainland, which is great. You do get back to the mainland, and you could enter the shop and buy a mysterious flute there as well, a strange flute. And I got that, and I was able to then summon Dimitri. From then on.
So Dimitri is your companion.
I did end up going with Dimitri, yeah. I figured it was a better choice for some reason. I think it was just because like I had no way of swimming around at that time, and I was like, I need to swim. Um, so I chose him. And the next part leads you to the next area. The next area is called the Noon Highlands. And this is an area where you meet the carpenter from Ocarina of Time, who is, again, looking for his workers who, again, are doing an awful job at working and are, slacking off on the job. Something I found out about this area, actually, is that depending on which strange flute you get, the landscape changes.
Right.
So if you go with Dimitri, it'll all be water for you to swim up waterfalls and shit. And if it's Ricky, then there's like cliffs and stuff.
There's cliffs, and if it's Moosh, there's a lot of holes. I have one in my game like that as well, and that's why it was. I blasted through this one area because it just was like, oh, I don't need a new animal companion. I don't need to meet anybody. And if I had not chosen Ricky, if I had gotten a flute before I met Ricky, it would have been one of the others as my companion. I just would have had to wait longer. So then by the time I had made it through, that area would have changed completely.
Sure. So that happened, and that was good. Eventually, I got all the carpenter's workers back together, and they built a bridge for me in like a snap. I don't understand why they couldn't have just done that and then just been done with their day's work, because it literally took them 10 seconds. Like, the carpenter is even like, wow, that was really fast, guys. Like, he was impressed. But anyway, he builds this bridge across to the next city, which is Symmetry City, which I thought was really interesting. It's exactly what it sounds like. They have the best feng shui. We have the best feng shui here. And Symmetry City, it's literally just a city where everything is set up exactly symmetrically. So anything you expect to see, or you see on the right side of the city, you'll expect to see the exact same thing on the left, including people who live in houses and everything. The main building, there's these twins who are standing on either side, and they inform you that Symmetry City, there's, you know what? Actually, let me go back. What happens when you get to Symmetry City in the present is that it looks like a shithole. Like, everything is just ruined, and all the houses are, like, destroyed. You travel back to the past, and you find that these two girls tell you that the volcano is about to, like, erupt, and everything is going to shit, and the only way to restore it is to, like, for them to, restore the Toonie nut, which is, like, this nut that apparently just holds the order in Symmetry City.
As nuts usually do.
As nuts always do. There's always a nut at the center of every city that holds it together, obviously. So they say that you have to restore the nut in order to...
the earthquake in 1910 San Francisco, 1908. That someone took the nut out of San Francisco.
Someone stole the nut, and that's why there was the earthquake.
What is it? Is it 1908?
I don't
1960? In the early 1900s. I grew up there. It's okay.
But this is like one of my favorite things is like about Symmetry City is like they're like, oh yeah, this guy in town knows how to restore the nut. So you go to this guy who lives in this house, and he's like, oh yeah, there's this guy on this hill that can fix the nut. He's like, I would go do it, but I have to stay here or else it won't be symmetrical. Literally, everyone in this town is just OCD as fuck. They're just like, I have to stay in this exact place because my brother lives in the house across the village, and if I don't uphold the symmetry, everything goes to shit. Like, okay. So anyway, you make your way up this mountain, which was a lot of traveling. Well, let me start that, is that you end up going to a certain part of the mountain where you find this songwriter, and he's like, oh, I'm trying to write this song, and you're like, cool, and you play him your song, which is a song of echoes where you can travel back to the past, and he's like, oh, that's so cool, I'm going to show you this song, and he gives you the Song of Currents. So now, from the past, you can travel back, and you don't even have to use a portal on the ground, you can just travel back whenever the hell you want using the Song of Currents. So now, there was a lot of traveling to the past, back to the present, back and forth up this mountain. It was a lot. But you finally make your way to the restoration wall, and you climb up the restoration wall, and there's this guy named Patch up there, who is obviously the guy who can restore the tuning nut, because his name is Patch.
How many songs do you have? 2?
So there's only 2. There's Currents and there's Echoes. So Patch helps you with the restoring the tuning nut. He repairs it. You take it back to Symmetry City in the past and give it to these twins, and they put it back on its pedestal. And you travel to the present, and now Symmetry City is flourishing. It is beautiful. The volcano has turned into a waterfall, and the entrance to the next dungeon is in this waterfall in the volcano, and that's Skull Dungeon. I'm just going to readjust.
Skull Dungeon.
Skull Dungeon.
Monster kill.
Skulls. So Skull Dungeon, obviously the most metal of dungeons. It's so called because it looks like a fucking skull.
Like the actual...
The map.
I haven't got a lot of those, and I've been checking. In fact, actually, in the fourth dungeon... Or, no, in the third dungeon, I remember very distinctly, I went to check my map, and the game crashed.
Oh my god.
And so I had to do, like, an hour of, like, playback to catch up to where I was.
Oh no.
So then, like, I've been constantly, like, you know, the what do you call it, the safety save, where you just save like 3 times every time you save anyway.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Skull Dungeon, it worked as the first floor, which is the main floor, works. It looks like a skull, and then the basement looks like the jawbone of the skull, which is kind of like how it ended up working.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I like this dungeon. It was cool. I died a lot. Namely because there's like this one room that had like 6 yellow Stalfos, and you just have to like beat them all to proceed.
Or else they throw little bones at you.
Yes, and they throw bones at you, and you're like, how the fuck? What am I? Are you kidding me? Like, that was just my...
There's no bones about it.
No bones about it. Also, interestingly enough, there's also a lot of train tracks here, as was with your 4th dungeon. So a lot of shooting things with the seed shooter on the tracks in the minecarts. The sub boss here, his name was Armos. It was an Armos warrior. And he was like pretty funny because he was like, haha, you'll never beat me. And he had a sword and shield. And the way that you beat him is like he throws his sword at you and it like boomerangs back. So you basically get him to throw it at you so that it like kind of misses you and circles back and hits him. So it's like you suck at this. You're not at all. And then there's a new... I don't know if this is a new kind of puzzle, but it was definitely the most difficult type of this puzzle in this dungeon, where the floor... You go into the floor is all blue. Every tile on the floor is blue. You step on a tile, and it turns yellow. That's the lead tile. Then you continue through the room, like snaking through the room, and every tile that you have touched turns red as you pass over them. In the center, there's another gold tile. So you have to basically snake your way around the room, around these blue tiles, and make your way to this yellow tile in the center of the room, basically without, like, missing any of these tiles, if that makes any sense. So you basically have to, like, go through the entire room, like, and touch all these tiles, not miss any, and end up in the center.
There's a specific pattern to each of the puzzles.
Right.
And you have to go along the course while avoiding enemies and obstacles. And I actually really, really like those kind of puzzles.
I do too. It was a lot
That's
of fun.
like why I like the puzzle blocks with the colors.
Yeah.
It's that kind of a puzzle, just presented differently.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. I actually liked it a lot. This one, there was just like statues kind of in the way, like obstructing the path. So you have to just go around those statues and account for those. And there are 2 of those floors in this dungeon. The first one was like, oh, this is fun. The second one was like, oh my god, I'm gonna rip my hair out. This is really hard. Like, it took me probably about 15 minutes to do the second dungeon, like the second room with that puzzle. It's pretty challenging. But you do make your way through this dungeon to find one of my favorite items in Zelda games. In fact, my always favorite item in every Zelda game, which was different in this game. Usually it's the hook shot, which is always like my favorite item. In this game, it's the switch hook, which I thought was really interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah. So in other Zelda games, as you know, you use a hook shot, and you know there will usually be like these diamond. Well, and that's the thing is, I was walking through this dungeon and I saw these diamond-looking stones, which I'm like, that's the hook shot too. The hook shot is close by.
So you were getting real juice on finding the hook shot.
And then I find it, and it's like switch hook. So basically, what this does is instead it hooks across to that like diamond. Like that diamond stone or whatever, but then it just switches places with it. So you switch places with that stone. The same thing happens with anything you switch hook. You can switch hook enemies and you'll just switch places with them. It doesn't even hurt them sometimes. Sometimes it does. But I thought that was really interesting and different, and definitely adds more to the originality of this game, and a lot more of these puzzles are different because of that, I think. It's like, instead of switching or like just hooking to something, I'm actually going to switch places with that thing, so you have to account for that. Sometimes you'll have to like use that to place something on a switch on the floor. So you have to switch places with that thing so it weighs down that switch on the floor. So I thought that was pretty cool. Another reason why I really like this dungeon. And the final boss was called Eyesore. Very much like many other Zelda bosses, I suppose, where there's a center boss in the middle and he's big, and then he has little ones of himself around him, like circling around. And the whole thing with this is you have to switch hook through the guys that are like shielding him and like to him, switch places with him, and then he gets all disoriented and you have to just hack and slash from there on. So that was pretty cool. And that was pretty much the end to that dungeon. Sorry, let me finish that.
I've just noticed that like you seem to be getting all of these items so far. Each of them have been one before me. Like I got the power bracelet before you,
and the Pegasus seeds.
And because I don't really count that as an item, really.
Sure,
but like you got the Rock's Feather, the dungeon before the one that I got it in, and you got the basically the equivalent to the slingshot before I did. So maybe it's because Oracle of Ages takes place after. Maybe it was supposed to be like you're gonna get these things again, but sooner, so you can start getting the new ones. I'd be interested to see if the next dungeon I got something like the switch hook or the hook shot.
You're still getting items every dungeon though, aren't you?
Right, but I feel like I got the power bracelet before you did, but then one of the smaller items in the game, like the shovel or something, was like an item, and I'd have to go back and see.
Interesting.
Because honestly, it's I've been noticing that there's 3 dungeons now in a row that you've gotten the thing, not including this one, but that you've gotten the thing that I would eventually get in the next dungeon. So I'm wondering if I'm gonna go get that one next.
Maybe. The reward here, the essence of time that I got, was the burning flame, and the description of it was, "It reignites wavering hearts with a hero's burning passion." Skull Dungeon is so fucking metal, dude.
Yeah, my essence said something about just like the soothing rain makes trees sprout up.
Nice. Since we're kind of going through the trade quest as well, I'll finish up on what was going on with that. Because it did end up in Symmetry City, which was the place I was just in. So you get the doggy mask, and there's this woman in Lina Village who is just like obsessed with dogs. And she's like, but she says, okay, this is the thing, is she has a little dog, and she's like, oh, he's so cute, but he's so shy. I wonder if there's something I could give him to make him less shy. And you're like, how about this doggy mask? So you put a dog mask on a dog.
He's shy, dude.
And she's like, perfect.
Yeah, how dare you? He's shy. He's a shy boy.
And she gives you a dumbbell. Just one. And so you go back.
Just a single.
Exactly.
Dumbbell.
So you go to Symmetry City, and obviously there's this guy who's lifting a single dumbbell, and he's pissed because he's in Symmetry City. So you're like, here,
he's getting jacked on like one.
Yeah, he's like, how am I supposed to do 2 arms? And so you give him the other dumbbell, and he gives you a cheesy mustache. So there's this guy in Lina Village who is like, I wish there was an easy way to make people laugh. So you give him the cheesy mustache, obviously, and he gives you a funny joke. And so you take this funny joke to this guy in Lina Village. He's like a boy. He looks like a child, and he's like really depressed, and like it's dark in his house, and he's like, I live in eternal darkness. And you're like, okay. And you tell him the funny joke, and he's like, that was so funny that I forgot to laugh. But he humors you, and he gives you this touching book. And then next time you see Maple and run into her, she sees your touching book, and she's like, oh, I want that book. And she takes it and gives you a magical oar. And like an actual like rowing oar. And that's the last thing that happened with my trade quests.
Okay.
So that was it with the 4th dungeon. We'll definitely cut here since we're kind of running out of time. But any final comments about that or anything you have to say?
It's because it treats bombs as an item to get in a dungeon for my game, and you just probably got bombs, and we're just like, cool, it's bombs, it's Zelda.
Yeah, it kind of just picks up some bombs.
Yeah, so you just picked up some bombs. That was like one of the items I got in the first dungeon that was like, look at this game, items. So that's why I'm legitimately 1 behind on each dungeon.
Gotcha. Maybe that's why.
You got the power bracelet in dungeon 1. You got the Rock's Feather in 2, which were 2 and 3 for me. Then you got the seed shooter in 3. I got that, and I got the slingshot in 4. So I must be getting something like this switch hook.
You didn't get flippers in the dungeon though. You got
no.
outside, right?
Did you get flippers in a dungeon?
No, outside.
Yeah. So like, I must get a switch hook next time or something. But that's it.
Okay, cool. So,
yeah, I got nothing to add to. I wonder if I'm gonna be able to find those golden beasts before the next dungeon.
Well, yeah, I mean, it seems like really end game stuff as well. So it's like whatever if you don't, but it looks like you're kind of jumping the gun a little bit on that.
I'm looking for it, man, dude. The like reward for that has got to be great.
Fair enough. It probably is. It's probably a nice upgrade. But cool. We'll pick up next time, and thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time on A Link Between Oracles.